Well, Josh, we're here. Fiji, mate. You know, that's a bit of an epic. It was fun to see you arrive in daylight. You were one of the few. How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel great. Yeah, I did a little bit of extra work to get here in the daylight. I think I sailed an additional 100 miles or something like that. Everybody thought I was going past Fiji. They're like, oh, mate, you missed it. Yeah.
I thought you dropped the car keys or something. You were just trying to pick them up, you know. But that's cool. It's all about getting here safely, eh?
Yeah, exactly. I just had, there was a few factors against me, you know, and I was just unsure. So I just played it safe, and
absolutely.
It was just fine. No issues.
We were just laughing, you know, some of the other guys and girls, you know, saying, oh, they got this to do, that to do, and apparently you've just got a bit of dusting to do down below, you know, you're ready to go.
Yeah, take everything out and clean behind it and put it all right back where it goes, you know, everything lives in its place. So
as you know, and first of all, I'll just remind everyone, we did an interview with Josh in Panama, so that covers a lot of your background, mountain climbing, all that sort of stuff, so people can, so anyone watching this for the first time, if you want to know Josh's real story, you can go back and watch that one as well, which is very interesting. But you know, I've always been impressed, as you know, from day one with your attitude and your boat, right? Now you're 12,000 miles, oh well, you know, yeah, more than 12,000 miles into it or something. The boat's impeccable. There's nothing to do on it.
Right.
Obviously that's coming across from your mountain climbing when your life is literally on the line. So can you verbalize that, you know? Yeah,
well, you know, they say you take care of the boat and she takes care of you, right? And it's a long race. It's 28,000 miles. So I figure the longer I can preserve it, the longer it'll last, you know. So and then that's just like not only safety but just peace of mind, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I try to keep it clean and I try to take good care of her, you know. So then there's you know, I have you know, minimal things to do when it comes to port. I get to just enjoy it and hang out with my friends, and that's kind of the big part of it for me is socializing with everybody. So yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint, you know. So I kind of just take care of the boat and try to make my way as best I can.
Cool. Yeah. So hang out with your friends. Josh, can you fix this for me, Josh?
Right. That's pretty much.
Anyway, no wonder. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Okay. So that transition again. I'm saying this in the perspective that you had only just been going a bit in Panama, but you know that transition from mountain climbing into sailing was a conscious decision because you saw some of your friends are lost on the side of the mountain and things like this.
Yeah.
Do you know, how do you perceive your attitude towards the race? This has got risk, you know, sometimes we forget it because we're all so far so good, touch wood, but you know, where do you see the biggest risks and what have you personally done, you know, how do you manage that, you know, what are you doing?
Well, the biggest risks are putting them flags up.
And you did a very good job of that, Josh.
Hanging my ass over the lifelines.
Right.
But no, seriously, it's just it's all about risk management, and in the mountains it's the same thing. You know, you weigh your decisions based on your experience and what you know, and then you try to mitigate the unknowns, you know, and try to and just you worry about the things that you can control, you know, and focus on that stuff, and you kind of just let it happen as it goes, you know. But sailing and climbing there's such a large overlap there, you know.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's obviously risk involved, and I put a high priority on self-reliance, you know, so not needing any kind of outside help or anything like that. If I can, you know, get myself in good condition, then that's kind of the most important thing for me. And so yeah, I've been sailing a bit more conservatively, just to try to, you know, make it all the way around, right? I think for me the race kind of starts after Cape Town. If I can get to Cape Town, then I can open up the envelope a bit, you know. But yeah, it's just about what I like to say is perceived danger versus actual risk. You know, you kind of get in your head a little bit about what you're worried about, and then Graham had a good point. He's just because we were talking about making the reef passage at night and stuff like that, and he's just like, it's just like anything else. You know, when you're worried about it, then when you get into it and you're actually doing it, it comes a bit more easily. You know, so yeah, I just try to focus on. You know, keeping the boat together and keeping myself healthy, and then you can deal with the challenges as they arise.
Yeah.
Obviously, this next passage is we've come to in climbing what we call the crux, which is the hard part on any climb. So they always save the crux for the hardest part.
Yeah. You give me the impression that you're quietly having an absolute ball. We don't see a lot of posts come out on what's going on, but can you describe it? What's some of your biggest moments of sheer joy, screaming, oh wow, whatever, what is it, where's the highs at the moment?
Oh, every day I wake up and I just get to go sailing, you know, and then when the wind is good and the boat's going good, I just laugh to myself, because you curse yourself when you're becalmed or whatever, and I've spent plenty of time becalmed, and you think, oh, what am I doing out here, and did I make the right decision, and oh, this is a stupid idea and I should have never done this, and then the next day you wake up and the wind's blowing right and the sail's set and the boat just takes off, and then you're just grinning and laughing and having the best time, and I just think everything's all right with the world.
Yeah. So is the MGR delivering what you expected so far? Like when you first decided to do it and build the boat and blah blah blah, you must have had a vision. There was something in the dream. Is it bigger or less or more, or more fun or less fun?
Oh yeah, no, it's right on par. Like it's you kind of wake up and you realize where you are and what you're doing. Like I'll be down below because it'll be bad weather or whatever, and I'll come out on deck and I'll just look around and there's a billion stars and endless ocean, and that's exactly what I want to be doing right when I want to be doing it, and I just think to myself, holy cow, I'm actually here. You kind of have to check yourself, a bit of a reality check, and then you end up in these beautiful places and you think like what I did to get here. I built my boat and then I sailed it 9,000 miles from the east coast of North America, and it hits home, and then you really feel it, and so that's kind of what it's all about for me, is that feeling of I'm actually doing this.
I think you just answered the question I was about to say. So when you get in, you step off the boat and you look back at the boat and imagine, hang on, I was on that boat, and you feel, how do you feel? Like you feel proud, or you feel, oh, holy moly, what's going on?
Yeah, it's just it's like I said, like a reality check, like you don't believe it until it happens, kind of thing. It's kind of just in your imagination, and that's one of my favorite things about life, is taking something that's only in your imagination and then making it real. I think that's one of the special things, powers that we have as human beings.
Yeah. Do you think it's changing you?
Yeah, it's making me want to spend more time at home.
Okay.
Yeah, you kind of realize when you get out there, you have this vision and this dream, and you put so much of your time and energy into it, and you focus your entire life on it, and then you kind of get out there and you're doing it, and you kind of realize what you left behind, or you maybe had what you wanted at home all along, and so that's good, But I get to scratch the itch, which is
you get to think about what's important in life.
Yeah.
Because you get a long time to think, eh?
Yeah, exactly. And then you get out there and for me I wish that I had like a drone or some way to get an outside perspective, because you only get the one look of you in the cockpit and the boat, and I would imagine that from even 100 yards off it looks just absolutely mental, like this tiny little boat on the big old ocean, and I always just think to myself, holy cow, I'm actually like sailing my little boat that I built myself across the ocean right now, so it's cool.
So
living in the moment.
How's your relationship with the boat?
Oh, it's great. We're best friends. Everybody always asks me, like, well, what are you going to do with the boat after this, And I always say, well, I'm probably going to have to sell it, but shh, don't let it, I say that where it can't hear me say that, because it's like, he's like, little boat's like, oh man, I just took care of you all those miles, you're going to go ahead and turn your back on me, So yeah, we're good friends. I love the little boat. It's great. It's so much fun to sail. Anybody that's thinking about building one should absolutely do it, because it is just a blast. The little boat. It takes such good care of you. Everybody, all these people think you're crazy, or some guy walked down the dock the other day and he looks around and he looks at the boat and he's like, so, have you pitch poled it yet? And I think it would be pretty obvious if I had, But that's his first thought, is, oh, this little boat, you're going to go out on the ocean, you're going to pitch pole immediately. But it's just absolutely not true. They can handle, on this last passage we had 25 blowing 30, and 3-4 meter seas, and the little boat loved it. It seems to like rougher conditions more than the lighter conditions. The light conditions, it kind of it wanders a bit, and it doesn't want to go. But then as soon as it gets heavy, it just tracks perfectly straight. And you can. The thing I like about those is you can reduce the sail. You have so much option for sail. You can just reduce the sail based on the conditions, and when you're sailing in the heavy conditions, you can use less sail, and everything just seems so much more manageable. So yeah, I think the little boat goes great. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. Have you started to think about or visualize the next leg? It's a long way, 9,700 miles or something, and you're getting an understanding of what's coming.
Yeah, I think about it all the time. Jasmine will say, like, I haven't even looked at the charts, but like every minute that I'm down, I'm looking at the charts for the next leg. Because I mean, in climbing, it's the same thing. You pre-visualize. Pre-visualization is huge. You imagine yourself doing it, or you visualize yourself doing it over and over and over again, and then when you come to doing it, then you kind of have the steps that you need to achieve laid out in your mind. You say, I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this, and then all the pieces just kind of fall into place. So yeah, I spend a lot of time looking at the charts, a lot of time thinking about the tides, thinking about if I'm here in this situation, what will I be doing, and how will I be navigating and negotiating it. I think it's really important. It's part of seamanship, I think.
It's very sound principles.
Yeah.
That's what gets you there.
That's right.
Yeah. So what's been the biggest downer, like when, between Panama and here, either, psychologically or just too hard work, what's been the down moments?
For me, it was the Galapagos, because I was becalmed 4 days. I was 50 miles behind Jasmine or something like that, and 4 days later I was 250 miles behind.
Yeah.
And I was really down about it. Like if you could go back through my WhatsApp and look at my texts to my sister and my dad and stuff, I was just like, I'm a complete failure, and I'm no good at this, and I shouldn't be out here, and all this stuff, and I'm never going to catch them. And they were just like, you're one of 15 people out of 7 billion that's doing this. Like, it doesn't matter, you're doing it. So
I hate to say this, but they're absolutely right.
Yeah, you just need to get over yourself, because I have high standards, and I'm a competitive guy, and I like to do well when I can, and I always get down on myself, like I'm not doing as well as I should be. But they're like, if you're doing it, you're doing as well as you should be. So don't feel so bad about yourself, and that really helped a lot, And then I was able to kind of relax into it and just enjoy the sailing, because when you're racing, obviously you feel a lot of pressure, should I change the sail? Do I have it set right? Should I do this? Should I do that? But when I kind of realized that I wasn't going to be able to catch them, I was able to just relax and just enjoy the passages, and it made a big difference for me mentally as far as being able to endure it.
Yeah. You're one of the few that, to my way of looking at you, you haven't physically changed much. You got into it and you still look the same day. A lot of others lost a lot of weight and all this sort of stuff. So you're obviously looking after yourself, food-wise and energy. How do you feel physically?
Oh, I feel great. And that's another thing that comes from I had achieved such a high level of fitness for the stuff that we were doing. Like, we weren't just going and climbing mountains, but we were trying to break records. We were trying to beat guidebook times, and we were trying to set fastest times on routes and stuff like that. So you really train hard for that, and it gives you this really high base level of fitness. And so like you might dip down if you're in a period of a bit of laziness, or you're not doing as much, you might dip down to your base level, but you never really go below that. And so that's kind of just like, I've managed to maintain stasis. I eat well, I eat when I'm hungry, I eat food I like, and I try to just have a good balance of protein and carbs and stuff like that, just try to manage my
Because you're a cooker as well. You cook up all the time.
Yeah, I cook up every day, basically.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, that's one of the things I look forward to. I hand steer for 12 hours straight, and then it's time for dinner. Put the wind vane on, and that's my reward. That's like my carrot at the end of the stick, that I've been working for all day. So yeah, and then I'll go down and make dinner, spaghetti bolognese or fish tacos or something like that, and then I'll sit in the cockpit and watch the sun go down. And every day I look forward to that, and then every day I look forward to getting up and having breakfast, so it gets me through the night.
What about your sleep patterns? Because when I sail for 5 hours, I've got plenty of sleep, because you're going to need to pull so many lines so often.
Yeah, right. I sleep 40 minutes at a time. Yeah, so I'll set the alarm for 40 minutes, and when I get in the rhythm, I usually wake up after 37, so like I'll wake up and there'll still be 3 minutes left on the alarm. But I just check the sails.
So you rarely have a big sleep?
Check the course. No, I rarely do. There was one point here on this last passage where I was trying to go between two islands, and I draw the course on the chart plotter, and I try to not deviate more than 3/4 of a mile from the course, because on the tracker I want my line to look nice and straight. Everybody else's lines go like this, and mine's just like straight. So I follow that, you know.
Yeah.
And so I'll get up, you know, I'll wait, and I'll time it and see how long it takes to get for the boat, because it doesn't necessarily under the wind vane track perfectly straight. And so once it's 3/4 of a mile off, I'll get up and I'll make the adjustments to go back the other way, and I'll go back down, sleep another half an hour, 45 minutes, and then make the adjustment back. And so yeah, I never feel like I don't get enough rest, you know. And a lot of times I'll even take naps during the day, you know, and sail more at night when it's cooler, kind of like that. So yeah, I think my sleep pattern has worked out really well for me. I never pull into port feeling like I'm completely exhausted or anything like that. And the thing is, you have headroom, you know. So if I have to sail for 2 days, if I have to for some reason be up for 2 days, I can, you know, because I've got a reserve in the tank. So yeah,
that's true. So what do you do to step off the boat when you're at sea for relaxation, or get your mind to wander and get away from things, you know what I mean?
Oh, I've got books on tape. Yeah, I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I listen to a lot of music. Mostly I listen to music when I'm sailing, though. That's what helps me hand steer. I can't hand steer without music going. I'll just fall asleep. Or just zone out, you know, and I'll look and I'll be like 30 degrees off course or whatever. And so, but yeah, I read paper books too, and I play the ukulele and stuff, you know, sometimes. But I only know
is it getting any better?
Yeah, I only know 4 songs, but I've got them mastered.
Are you going to increase your repertoire?
I'm going to try. Yeah, because I used to know hundreds of songs, and then I just quit playing for a while, and I forgot them all. There's just like a few that I had known that were so well ingrained that I still remember them. But yeah, that's the one. I'm like, can I hear those 4 songs again? Yeah, sure, why not? So I'll pull it out, you know. Or sometimes it seems like the little boat likes it when I sing to it, you know. Yeah. So it helps it go better. Sing some sea shanties and stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So living on board, are you managing to keep it dry down below? You know, like you know what's happening there?
Yeah, the boat stays dry. I mean, I just keep the hatch closed.
Yeah.
You know, when there's a potential for water to come in, you know, sometimes you get a big breaking wave over the boat or something, a little bit of splash in, but nothing much, you know. And I've been fortunate I haven't had a lot of rain, you know. Like it seems like other guys.
You don't have a Dodger either.
I don't have a Dodger or anything. It's just the you know,
hatch and
aft hatch in the cabin there, and then just a hatch like on the bulkhead. And but it seems to stay pretty dry even when it's raining. I can close the hatch just like 3/4, and the rain still won't come in. You know, it depends on where it's blowing from. But no, it stays. It'll get damp, like because I'll go out with my jacket on or whatever, and I'll get wet if it's raining, and then I'll bring my wet jacket inside, and then it evaporates and things kind of get a little damp. But no, I haven't had any problems really. It stays pretty dry. I'm surprised, you know, because I was like, oh, everybody else has these fancy Dodgers and they've got their cockpit, the cabin tops extended and stuff like that. I was like, I'm just going to get absolutely soaked, and I've just been shocked really that it hasn't, you know. So I'm like, okay, well maybe there's something to that.
If there's something you could change now with all the experience you've got, and you're talking to a 580 builder, what would it be, if anything? You know?
As far as my boat goes, I'd probably put a hydrovane. You know, I think that's it feels like you can carry more sail. It seems like that with the offset hydrovane, those guys, they seem to be able to sail a little bit better, or track a little bit better. You know, but beyond that, I think it sails great. I feel like the rudder's a little bit undersized, you know, because you get to the crest of the wave and the boat heels over, and then you've got like this much rudder in the water, and it just rounds up. It doesn't matter what you do with the tiller; it just rounds up. So, but a lot of that has to do with sail balance too. You know, if you have something offset on the other side, you can help mitigate that a little bit. So
I call it a fuse. Right. I mean, it was not designed underside; it was designed under core principles of a boat. But it's proportionally beamy, which is cool, and so it could be. But you know, we've got so many boats out there now, we don't want to start playing around, and it's a fuse. It can have the effect of slowing people down.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you look at Trekka, which is a similar length boat, but it's also a much narrower beam, you know, which makes it a bit stiffer, you know. But you compromise. A boat's always a compromise, you know. So to have a little bit beamier boat, it's obviously more comfortable to be down below. I never feel claustrophobic down there. I always feel like I have plenty of room. And so that's kind of the trade-off. You know, a little bit more tender, but it's a little bit more comfortable at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Yeah.
So what would you say to someone that's watching you and watching all this, and they're thinking about, oh, should we do this or shouldn't we do this? You know, what advice would you give to them?
You should absolutely do it. You know, that's one of my big motivations for doing it, is that hopefully I can inspire people to do, not maybe obviously this, because it's just great fun, you know. You really bond with the fellow skippers, and that's like one of my favorite parts about it, is the fact that once we're all looking forward to seeing each other again, we're not tired of each other, or we're not just like, this guy, like, get him out of here, you know, like.
It's okay, you don't smoke cigars, it's fine.
Right. And so, yeah, I think the camaraderie and the family spirit of the whole event is really inspiring, you know. But that's one of the things that I hope to encourage people to do, even if you're just looking to make, you haven't ever made an offshore passage and you're thinking about it and you're nervous about it, just, you know, go out there and do it, you know. Like, learning by doing, I think, is one of the things that's most satisfying. So you really don't know until you get out there and try it, you know. And I think that this is I've always thanked you and Jane for making this possible for us, you know, for providing us with the opportunity to do something like this. Because it's absolutely incredible, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you know, but it's so many times, and you would have experienced as well with climbing. Every time you do something different, people say, you can't do that, you've never done it before.
Right.
You just take 2 seconds to think about it. How could you ever do it before if you haven't already done it?
That's right, yeah.
And it's a balance, because we took a bit of flack, for instance, with Jasmine. You know, people say, oh, she's inexperienced, she shouldn't be out there, blah, blah, blah. But you've got to leave the door open. And so that's where we have the qualifiers. You know, you know mountain climbing. You don't just go climb the big one.
That's right.
You start off with a little one and you get more and more and more and you go. So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you don't know what you're capable of until you get outside of your comfort zone. You know, that's just it, is getting outside of your comfort zone and testing your limits and kind of finding where they are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's important for people. You know, people get to be, what I say, addicted to comfort.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it prevents them from maybe doing some things that they would otherwise want to.
Comfort eventually becomes boring.
Yeah.
I call it flatlining. You know, if you got the line in the middle, that's the comfortable life, and as it gets hot, it's getting away from the line. You put the air conditioner on, so it comes back down to the line.
Right.
If it gets too cold, it goes below the line. You put the heater on, and it comes back to the line. And you progressively do that with everything. And next minute you're flatlining.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you think, oh, this beautiful high standard of living is dead boring.
Right. And that was one of the things that appealed to me about this event in particular, was that it was the world first, you know. I think, and like you say, like, people say, oh, well, you can't do that, you've never done it before, you know. Well, how did anybody do anything that had never been done before?
Absolutely.
You know, like, just as an example from my life, mountains that were climbed, the first time they got climbed, I'm sure people said it can't be done, you know, and it took somebody to say, well, I think it can. You know, and I'm gonna go out there and try. You know.
Yeah.
You know, exactly. and you play the game. It's a big gamble. You know, your seamanship and your courage against the weather and everything, and you put your life on the line as the stake. You know, but if you don't like the game, then you don't have to play. But I think that's the spice of life.
So did I ask you? Do you think this is changing you? This whole adventure is changing you?
It's changing me into a better sailor, that's for sure. But for me, it's always about the next goal, you know. Like, whenever I don't have a goal on the horizon, I feel a bit listless. I'm sure you can relate to that, you know. As soon as I finish something, I feel a bit hollowed out afterwards, you know, and then 6 months, a year goes by, and I'm like, all right, well, what can I do now, you know? I want to test my will, I want to test my resolve, you know, and see what I'm made of.
Yeah, it's the little voices. Yeah. The voices start when you're sitting around.
So I'd say I'm changing. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say, because I'll always want to do things like this. I'll always want to take big adventures, you know. Yeah. And it'll shape the types of adventures, I think, in the future, you know.
You're very much like me. So if I was in your position, what's next? Because that'll be on the agenda while I'm finishing one. You're thinking about what's next,
right?
So have you got a perspective on that yet?
Yeah, I mean, I try not to think about it too much. I try to just think about getting to Cape Town.
Yeah, exactly.
What's next is surviving to Cape Town. But no, I've always had the dream to kind of like maybe ride my motorcycle, you know, from Alaska to Ushuaia or something like that, you know. That was kind of, I was actually like kind of preparing to do that before I found the MGR, and then I ended up changing course, you know, and doing this instead. So that's always something that would be a consideration. But I would like to do a circumnavigation, but slowly. Yeah. Well, I guess more slowly.
Yep.
And just
I know what you mean.
Yeah. Just get to go to a few more places and stuff like that, you know, because you come to these places and it's just incredible, you know, and I want to go check out Sabu Sabu, and I want to go check out the La Group and stuff like that, you know, and it's basically you just make a note for later that, like, these are the things that you want to do. Yeah,
exactly. No, that's cool. All right, so now your boat is clean, you've dusted it, everything's organised, you're helping with everyone else's work. What holiday are you going to have while you're here? When are you going to unwind? What's happening? You've got family coming.
I've got people coming down. So my partner Kathy, she'll be here on the 15th. Yeah. And then my sister will be here a few days after that, and we've got a rental car, so we're going to go do some exploring and we got an Airbnb, and so we get to sleep in a real bed. That's kind of like the top of what I'm looking forward to, is sleeping in a real bed, but also just seeing everybody, you know, and kind of, I'm really excited for them to get to meet my extended family here, you know, because then they get to see who I'm spending all my time with, you know.
Yep, exactly. Okay, so you've got a good following. You know, because you haven't got Starlink, have you?
I have not. I'm the only one left that does not have.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know, because we're not short on, but we don't hear a lot. You know,
Right.
we get messages and we know what you're safe and see what you're going on the tracker and this, that, and the other. And obviously, budget is always a thing, because $200 is nothing, but it's the monthly fees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But are you enjoying the serenity of not having that? Do you think?
Yeah.
Is that you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I always like to do things the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my style. You know, how did it work for the people who did it back in the day? I mean, people sailed for thousands of years without Starlink, right?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it works for me too. And it's a double-edged sword, you know, because if you're trying to attract sponsors or attention and stuff like that, they want to see that social media. But at the same time, like, I just like to go sailing.
Yeah.
So like every day I go sailing, and I'm not worried about, am I doing this for the gram or whatever, you know, or should you get FOMO about missing shots, or like, should I have this on camera and stuff like that. And like, I film what I think is interesting, and I try to film interesting perspectives, you know, to try to give people a perspective of what it looks like from my point of view. And so, yeah, being disconnected it's nice, you know. You don't feel the pressure to be on all the time.
Don't worry, I'm with you.
Right.
When I only did the Transat on the 580, but just to do one tweet a day was a bit annoying.
Right.
Because it breaks you. It breaks you out of the groove. You
Yeah.
know?
And I do like the fact that we have to check in with the managers every day, you know, because that gives me something to look forward to. Just a little bit of communication with the outside world. And of course, my sister is all over the place. She's taken on the fleet as her like surrogate entrance. So. So yeah, it's good to check in, but I also enjoy the serenity too, for sure.
Yeah, that's cool. No, very good. So I think we're just about out on what we can talk about. You completely blow me away. You're so organised and so together, and I really keep coming back to your mountain climbing experience. You know, it really sets you up with self-discipline and risk management and you know, everything. You know, it's really quite amazing to watch. So good luck with the next part of the journey.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is the exciting part.
Have you got a favourite spot, like stopover? You know, that
every new spot is my next favorite spot. You know, like I thought. I mean, Panama was okay. There was a lot going on there, so we didn't really get a lot of time to enjoy ourselves. And then I thought the Marquesas, there's songs written about it and all these things, and I was like, oh, the Marquesas, you know, that's going to be Polynesia and South Pacific. And I got there and it just rained every day. And so I was like, oh man, what's going on here? And I was actually pretty low. I would have to say the Marquesas for me was the low point so far of the trip.
Really?
Yeah, I was pretty depressed while I was there, just because it was so. It was just, you had to, 30-minute walk to town, and you had to row your dinghy through the water wasn't so clean, and it was hard for me to live there, and so, but then after that I got to Tahiti, and Tahiti was just amazing, it was just paradise, with the clear blue water, and we went snorkeling in the reefs and stuff like that. And then I thought, well, it can't get any better than this. And then I went to Tonga.
That's when it got serious.
Yeah, no, man, Tonga was just absolutely beautiful. Anybody I can highly recommend if you're thinking about a South Pacific trip, then Tonga should be at the top of your list, because it was just beautiful. The water there was so clear, and the white sand beaches and beautiful coral reefs, and everybody's so friendly. And
I hate to say this, but you only saw one little bit.
I know.
In my opinion, the best bit's the Hapai group, which is 100 miles south, and it's like paradise. It's unbelievable.
Right.
Most people go to Vavau and keep coming. They miss the Hapai, which is something else. But anyway, that's part of the course, I suppose.
Yeah, and then we get to Fiji, and then it's even better. Everybody's even more friendly, and they all say hello, and everybody just wants to help, and they're also super helpful, and it's just one of the friendliest places I've ever been. So yeah, I really enjoy Fiji too. So, I mean, every stop, it just, like I said before, every stop is the next place that I never want to leave. So the bar just keeps getting set higher and higher, and I'm really looking forward to Cocos, because obviously I've read John Guswell's book, and he spoke so highly of it that I've wanted to go there ever since then, so I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I've said this in the others, I'm really envious, but anyway, we won't get there, but one day I'll get there maybe.
Yeah.
You think of John Guswell much when you go
Oh
around?
yeah, all the time. I mean, I don't know how many people know this, but I'm the only entrant that's actually seen Trekka in person.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and besides, like one of the questions.
When did you see it?
So it was in September of 2022 or something like that.
Okay.
2023. I was working at I was doing an offload at the ship terminal there in Victoria, and so. Preface to that, like I had sailed from Honolulu to Victoria as part of my qualifying miles, and when we were there, I went to the British Maritime Museum, and I said, I want to see Trekka, and they're like, well, you can't see it. It's not on public display. There's no way, you know, it's mothballed basically. And I was just like, oh, I was really disappointed because I had sailed all the way to Victoria thinking, oh man, as soon as I get there, I'm going to go see Trekka. And
you told them, hang on, I'm building a little boat.
Yeah, they didn't care. So I guess serendipity or the universe's way of making things happen, you know. I was there 2 years later for a job, and we were stuck in the port because they were having a problem with the crane on the ship. They couldn't lift our boat off the ship that it had come from Taiwan. And so we were there for 3 days, and we didn't have anything to do but just sit on the boat and wait to see if today was the day they were going to get it fixed. And so I was just using the washroom. I asked one of the dock workers, hey, where's the washroom? And he says, oh, it's in here. And he led me into this building, kind of like a warehouse, kind of like an event space, and they were doing some construction, so they had some plywood walls set up. And he said, here, the wall, it's through there, just let yourself out when you're done. And so I said, okay. And so I come out of the washroom and I look, and like I see the bowsprit of a boat that I recognized was Tillicum, which is like another small boat, epic small boat adventure. And I was like, oh man, that's the Tillicum, you know. I knew what the bowsprit looked like because that's another Pacific Northwest connected boat, you know. And I was like, well, those Tillicum is usually displayed with Trekka when they still had it on display. And so I was like, well, I'll have a look. So I walk around the corner and like there's Trekka right there, just sitting there. And basically, I had nowhere to be. I had nobody wondering where I was, so I had as much time to be alone with it as I wanted. I spent 2 hours in there just staring at it and walking around. I didn't want to touch it too much or anything, but yeah, it was really cool. That I got
stumble on it while going to the dunny.
Just exactly,
cool.
just purely by chance, and I was just absolutely thrilled. And so yeah, it's a beautiful little boat, and it's interesting just to see the differences, you know, and to think that, I mean, if people think, oh, you're crazy for sailing around the world in a 19-foot boat, and I look at Trekka and I was like, wow, he's crazy for sailing around the world in that.
I've been there, done that. I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, but it's cool. Like one of the questions that you asked when we were, applying for entry into the MGR was if you could change any two things about the MGR, what would it be? And I didn't answer, but what I should have answered was, if it's going to be a real race in the spirit of John Guswell, it should start and begin in Victoria.
Well, that's another story.
It's only 65 miles from where I was. But anyway, I definitely think about John a lot because of the Northwest connection. You know, how he built and sailed his boat from Victoria, and that was just right in my backyard. So yeah, it's really cool. It's kind of the hometown connection for me.
There's a funny irony to all of that. You know, I look at it, and he was a real trailblazer, you know, taking off in that little boat, going all the way around. But it's interesting looking at the course now and everyone coming across the same way. And you can see, you know, I mean, this is which comes first, Trekka or here. But if Trekka hadn't existed with John Guswell before, knowing what we know now, you think, oh, of course that boat's capable of doing this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? It's just that he was the first,
right? And
he gives you the twins, because I had 2 or 3 different, or 4 or 5 different experiences with other small boats that made me realise that small boats are cool. They're fine. You know, they're very seaworthy in the ocean. You know, Jean-Luc Vanity says there's like a wine bottle on the ocean. They just float around and they
rises to meet the waves. You know, you see this wave and and it's this tall over the transom, and you think, oh my gosh, and the boat just goes right over it. You know, just like that.
And that absolutely happened with us in the bounty boat. You know, when we did the bounty boat recreation, we had like about, I don't know, 30 centimetres of freeboard, less than that, totally. And it's fine. You know? You sail halfway across the Pacific in it, you know, open boat. So, and we used to dream when bounty boat, we used to imagine if you had a deck, ducking it over, and they had a keel. Oh man, we'd be in heaven, you know. And that was the seed. All of this stuff came together as the start of the 580. Anyway, we digress. So you guys are trailblazing. You're going to open the eyes to a lot of people about the safety factors of small boats.
I really hope so. And that's one of the things I love about small boats is all the loads are so manageable.
Yeah.
You know, even when the sails are full of wind, you can still pull them down by hand, and you know, you can do a lot of the sheeting by hand, and like you use the winches to haul up the mainsail and stuff like that, but you don't necessarily need them, you know. Yeah, exactly. You could pull it up by hand and then just put, you know, grind on some tension, but that's one of the things I love about it is you're not really worried about getting your thumb sucked into a winch or something like that. Like that stuff just doesn't happen.
I agree.
You know, so.
I call it, you can only pull so many strings so often. You know, the rest of the time you go sleep if you want.
Yeah.
It's not hard.
Yeah.
All right. Well done, Josh. I'm really, I say it virtually every time. Every one of you guys and girls is so totally different. In it for, you know, I say everyone's in it for a different reason, but at the same time, if you had to summarise why you're doing this from you personally in just a couple of words, what would it be? Why are you doing this?
Personal achievement.
Yeah.
You know, I was never, and when I was climbing, I was never in it for the adrenaline rush. Everybody's like, oh, you're an adrenaline junkie, you're just going out there for the thrill, you know. But for me, it was the sense of accomplishment to say I think I can do it and then prove myself right. Yeah. You know, I think is just really satisfying. Yeah. You know.
No, I put all of that. It's exactly the same. It's another way of saying that you want to prove something to yourself.
Exactly. I'm not trying to prove something to anybody else, although I am proud that, and I hope that people are inspired by what we're doing, you know, and to believe in themselves and to believe themselves capable of whatever it is that you want to do. Even if you want to ride your bike across town and you haven't ridden a bike in 15 years or something like that, you can absolutely do it. It all comes down to self-confidence, believing in yourself, believing in the fact that I can do this.
It all comes with adventure, eh?
Right. I can do this, I think would be what I would say.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, good job, man.
Always a pleasure.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
It was.